In the deep and endless galaxy, a small blue ship glided toward a shining world that looked like a crystal sphere. The planet was called Nareth, home of the Varelians, one of the most advanced alien civilizations known to humankind. The Varelians were tall, graceful, and beautiful. Their skin shimmered like glass under light, and their eyes glowed softly, like stars seen through mist. They were peaceful but proud, and once they had almost destroyed humanity. Many years ago, humans and Varelians fought a silent war across the stars. It was not a war of guns, but of fear and misunderstanding. The humans thought the Varelians wanted to rule the galaxy. The Varelians thought humans were wild and dangerous. But in time, peace was offered. And now, after many years, that peace had a name. Ambassador Elias Ward. Elias was a young but experienced diplomat from Earth. His eyes were calm, his voice steady, and his heart carried the weight of many lives. He was known among his people as the man who could make peace with fire. His mission was simple yet heavy, to create a strong alliance with Nareth. As his ship descended into the glowing atmosphere of the planet, Elias watched in silence. The clouds below him shimmered like waves of silver. Through the window he could see the capital city, Velithar, built from pure crystal, shining in every color of the spectrum. It looked like a dream carved into reality. A soft female voice spoke from the ship's communicator. Ambassador Ward, the Queen awaits your arrival in the Grand Palace. Please be respectful. She values honesty above all. Elias smiled faintly. Honesty, he murmured. That I can give. When he stepped out of the landing bay, a group of Varelian guards bowed in silence. They were dressed in silver armor that looked more like liquid light than metal. At their head stood a tall woman, elegant and proud. Her long hair glowed faintly blue, and her presence felt like calm power. I am Highguard Tyra, protector of the royal line, she said. Follow me, Ambassador. Elias followed quietly through the golden halls of the palace. The walls were made of transparent crystal, and inside them flowed slow streams of glowing light, the lifeblood of Nareth. Everywhere the sound of soft music hummed in the air, as if the palace itself was alive. Finally, they reached the Hall of Harmony, where the Queen of Nareth awaited. Queen Althera sat upon a throne that seemed to grow naturally from the floor, like a blooming flower of light. She was majestic, her skin shining in silver tones, her eyes deep and endless. Around her stood the royal council, silent and watching, but beside her stood another figure, slender, radiant, and beautiful beyond imagination. It was the Princess Seraphine. Her presence was almost unreal. Her hair flowed like silk mixed with light. Her eyes were soft gold, and her voice, when she spoke, was like music. Welcome to Nareth, Ambassador Ward, she said gently. Our world thanks you for coming in peace. Elias bowed deeply. The honor is mine, Princess. Queen Althera rose from her throne. Her voice echoed softly through the hall. Ambassador, the Varelians seek unity, not just peace. For too long our worlds have looked at each other with fear, but now we must stand together and as one. Elias nodded. That is my wish as well, Your Majesty. The Queen smiled, but there was something mysterious behind her calm eyes. Good. Then let the bond between our worlds take form. Before Elias could ask what she meant, the Queen turned toward her daughter. Seraphine has chosen, and I agree with her decision. The court grew silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Elias looked around, confused. Chosen? I don't understand. The Queen's gaze fixed on him. She has chosen you, Ambassador Ward. Elias blinked in disbelief. Me? Yes, the Queen said simply. You are to become part of our royal bloodline. A union between human and Varelian, the symbol of lasting peace. The hall erupted with soft whispers. The alien council members looked at each other with surprise and curiosity. A few seemed pleased. Others looked uneasy. Elias felt his heart race. Your Majesty, he said carefully, this is unexpected. I am honored, but such a union is the bridge our worlds need. The Queen interrupted, her tone calm but firm. Our people will see that we are no longer divided. Elias looked at Princess Seraphine. She smiled softly, her golden eyes full of kindness. But her beauty struck him like sunlight on water, blinding, perfect, untouchable. He felt a strange ache in his chest. She was too perfect to be real. He took a slow breath and bowed again. Your Majesty, I am deeply grateful, but I cannot accept. The hall went silent. The queen tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. Cannot? She repeated as if the word was foreign. Elias kept his voice respectful. It would not be right. I am a guest here, and my purpose is peace, not power. The queen's expression grew colder, though her voice remained calm. You reject the honor of the royal line? Elias met her gaze steadily. I mean no insult, but love, or alliance, cannot be forced. It must grow naturally, or it will mean nothing. The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then she gave a slow nod. Very well, Ambassador. You have spoken your truth. The court dismissed, but the tension lingered like a shadow. That night, Elias was given a guest chamber in the palace. It was more beautiful than anything he had ever seen. The walls shone like moonlight, and the floor seemed to hum softly under his feet. But Elias felt restless. He walked out onto the balcony, staring at the stars above. The night sky of Nerith was alive with colors, rivers of light moving through space, painting the heavens. He thought about Earth, its imperfect skies, its gray clouds, its cities full of noise and life. It was a world of flaws, yet it was real. Humans were not perfect, but they had hearts that could love and dream. That, he thought, was their true beauty. As he stood in silence, a soft voice spoke behind him. Do you dislike me, human? Elias turned. It was Princess Seraphine. She stood at the balcony entrance, wearing a gown that shimmered like the stars themselves. Her eyes were curious but not angry. No, Elias said gently. I do not dislike you, Princess. Then why did you refuse? She asked softly. My people admire humans. You are brave and strong. I thought you would see our offer as a gift. Elias smiled faintly. It is a gift, Princess. But it is also too much. You are too beautiful. Seraphine tilted her head, puzzled. Too beautiful? Is that a fault among humans? He laughed quietly. No, it is not a fault. But beauty can hide the truth. Love cannot begin with something so perfect because humans, we are not perfect. We need something real, something that can be lost or broken. That is what makes it precious. The princess fell silent. For the first time, someone had spoken to her not with admiration, but honesty. She looked at the stars, her golden eyes reflecting their light. You are strange, human, she said softly. No one has ever refused me before. Elias smiled. Maybe that's why I did. They stood in silence for a while, listening to the soft hum of the night. Somewhere far away, the city lights of Nerith shimmered like living jewels. But under that beauty, Elias sensed something deeper, something hidden. The Queen's proposal was not just about peace. It was about control. A marriage would bind humans to the Varelian throne forever. He could not allow that. When dawn arrived, the palace bells rang softly, announcing a new day. Elias prepared for his next diplomatic meeting, but word had already spread across Nerith. The human had refused the princess. Some called him brave, others called him foolish. Yet somewhere in the Queen's private chambers, a voice of curiosity whispered to her heart. This human, the Queen murmured to herself, he speaks of truth like fire. I must understand why he burns when others bow. And thus began a story that would change two worlds forever. A story born not of love, but of honesty. The next morning on Nerith began with a silver sunrise. The sky was not blue like Earth's, but filled with glowing clouds that drifted slowly across the heavens. Every light reflected on the glass buildings of the capital city, making them sparkle like gems floating in the air. It looked like paradise. Yet for Elias Ward, the human ambassador, that paradise felt strangely quiet. He stood on the balcony of his guest chamber, holding a small device in his hand. It was a photo of Earth, his home. The picture showed green forests, gray cities, and a blue ocean. It was full of life and imperfection. He missed that imperfection deeply. The soft sound of footsteps made him turn. It was Princess Seraphine. She wore a white robe made of thin light fibers that shimmered gently as she moved. Her face looked calm, but her golden eyes carried many unspoken thoughts. Good morning, Ambassador, she said softly. Good morning, Princess, Elias replied, bowing politely. You did not sleep well, she noted, reading his tired expression easily. He smiled faintly. It seems your people can read more than thoughts, Princess. We can sense emotion, she said. You carry sadness, yet also peace. That is rare among humans, I think. Elias looked out toward the horizon. Maybe sadness and peace are not so different. Sometimes you find peace only after you learn to live with sadness. Seraphine tilted her head, curious. You speak in strange ways, human. My people do not understand sadness. We have no hunger, no sickness, no loss. We live in harmony. That's what makes you strong, Elias said quietly. But it also means you don't understand what gives life meaning. The princess frowned slightly. Meaning? Elias nodded. Humans find meaning in struggle. We fail, we fall, we hurt, and still we rise again. That is what makes our lives special. Seraphine looked confused. But why suffer when you can live in peace? Why not remove pain? Elias smiled softly. Because without pain we would never know joy. Without loss we would never understand love. Your world is perfect, princess, but perfection can feel empty. The princess stood silently beside him. The morning light touched her face, making her look even more unreal, like a statue carved from sunlight. For the first time she wondered what her beauty meant. Her people were created to be perfect, flawless in every sense. But this human's words made her wonder if flawlessness was a kind of cage. On Earth, Elias said, breaking the silence, we have storms that destroy homes, and yet we rebuild. We have deserts with no water, yet life still finds a way to grow. That is what being human means. She looked at him closely as if trying to see the world through his eyes. You speak as if pain is beautiful, she said. Sometimes, Elias said with a gentle smile. It is. Later that day, Elias was invited to the Hall of Light, a great library filled with glowing data crystals. There, he was to meet the Royal Council and continue peace discussions. As he walked through the shining corridors, he noticed that Varelians moved with quiet grace, speaking only through calm telepathic tones. There was no laughter, no anger, no chaos. Everything was perfect and lifeless. In the council meeting, the queen sat on her throne, her silver eyes steady. She studied Elias with quiet interest. Ambassador, she said, our people wish to share knowledge with humanity. We offer technology that can heal all wounds, erase hunger, and extend life. The other council members nodded proudly. Elias hesitated before answering. Your Majesty, such gifts are beyond measure, but I fear humanity may not be ready for them. The hall went silent. The queen raised an eyebrow. Not ready? Do you think your people are too weak to accept peace? Elias shook his head. No, I think they are too human. When everything becomes easy, we stop growing. We forget what it means to strive for something. One of the counselors, a tall male with emerald skin, frowned. You speak nonsense. Suffering serves no purpose. Elias met his gaze calmly. Perhaps. But tell me, counselor, would you know the value of light if you had never seen darkness? The alien counselor fell silent. Even Queen Althera looked thoughtful. She sensed that the human's words carried weight, though they were simple. After the meeting ended, the queen called out to her daughter, Seraphine, stay with the ambassador. Learn from him. See the way his people think. Seraphine bowed gracefully. As you command, mother. That evening, Elias and Seraphine walked through the gardens of Nerith. Every plant glowed softly, feeding on light instead of water. The air smelled of fresh rain, though there were no clouds in the sky. It was peaceful, too peaceful. Seraphine picked a glowing flower and handed it to him. Do humans have flowers like this? Elias took the flower carefully. Not like this. Ours are smaller, sometimes dull in color, but they smell sweeter, and they die quickly. She blinked in surprise. They die? He nodded. Yes, but that makes them special. Because they bloom only for a short time. When they're gone, we remember them. The princess stared at the flower in his hand. Everything on our world lasts forever. Nothing fades. We have forgotten how to miss something. Elias smiled gently. Maybe that's what I meant when I said you're too beautiful, princess. Your beauty is eternal. It leaves no space for longing. She looked at him quietly, feeling something new stir inside her, something her people had never felt before. It was not sadness, not joy, but a strange ache. Do humans miss each other often? She asked softly. All the time, Elias said, because love is not about owning someone. It's about knowing they could be gone and loving them anyway. They walked in silence for a long while. The stars above were bright, and in the distance the golden towers of the palace glowed like beacons. Seraphine suddenly asked, Ambassador, are you married on your world? Elias smiled faintly. No, I was once close to someone, but she died during the war. I promised myself I would help build peace so no one else would lose someone they love. Seraphine looked down. "I am sorry," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "Don't be. Her memory is why I'm still here." For the first time, the princess felt her heart move with something she didn't understand. Sympathy, admiration, perhaps even sorrow. Her golden eyes shimmered, and a single tear of light rolled down her cheek. She quickly touched it, shocked. "What is this?" she asked softly. "It feels warm," Elias smiled kindly. "That, princess, is a tear. It means you feel." She looked at the shining drop on her finger in wonder. "It's beautiful." "Yes," Elias said, "because it's real." The next few days, Seraphine spent more time with the human ambassador. She asked him about Earth, about oceans, storms, mountains, and laughter. Elias told her about rain that soaked the soil, about children playing in the mud, and about music made by imperfect voices. Each story fascinated her. She began to see beauty in imperfection, in things that did not shine, in things that broke. But not everyone was pleased. The royal court started to whisper. Some said the princess was becoming too close to the human. Others feared she was changing. One night, High Guard Tyra approached the queen. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "the human speaks strange ideas to the princess. He fills her mind with weakness." Queen Althera listened silently. Her calm face hid her thoughts. "Weakness," she repeated, "or understanding." Tyra bowed her head. "Forgive me, Majesty, but change is dangerous." The queen looked out over her shining city, lost in thought. "Perhaps. Yet change is what keeps life moving." That same night, as Elias prepared to rest, he received a small message from the queen's chamber. It read only 2 words: "We must talk." He knew that his time on Nareth was about to reach a turning point, but for now, as he looked out at the glowing world, he thought of Seraphine's tear, her first sign of humanity. And far above, in the endless stars, the universe seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. The palace of Nareth was quiet that night. The silver lights that usually glowed through the walls were dimmed, and the air felt heavy, as if the entire planet was holding its breath. Ambassador Elias Ward stood outside the Queen's chamber, waiting. He had been summoned without explanation. The guard said only one thing: "The Queen requests your presence immediately." Elias took a slow breath. He had expected this moment. Ever since his gentle refusal of the royal proposal, whispers had filled the palace halls. Some admired his honesty, others called him foolish, and the Queen, no one could guess what she truly felt. When the large doors opened, Elias stepped inside. The throne chamber was vast and glowing, but tonight it looked darker, more mysterious. The crystal floor reflected every step he took. Queen Althera sat on her throne, surrounded by soft rings of light. Her silver eyes watched him like twin moons, calm but unreadable. At her side stood Princess Seraphine, her face calm yet troubled. She lowered her head slightly when Elias entered. "Come forward, human," the Queen said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried power. Elias approached slowly and bowed. "Your Majesty." For a long moment there was silence. Only the soft hum of energy moved through the air. Then the Queen spoke again. "Ambassador Ward," she said, "you have refused a bond that could unite our species. You have turned away from my daughter, your equal in every way, and you have done it before the entire court." Her gaze sharpened. "Now tell me, human, why?" Elias stood still. He could feel the weight of her presence pressing upon him. Her telepathic energy was like a cold wind in his mind, brushing against his thoughts, but he kept his calm. Finally, he lifted his head and answered softly, "Because she's too beautiful." The room went silent. Even the energy lights flickered for a moment. The Queen tilted her head slightly, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Too beautiful?" she repeated. Elias nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. Too beautiful for me to love her honestly." The Queen's expression remained calm, but her eyes grew sharper. "Explain yourself, human. You speak in riddles." Elias took a slow breath. "Your daughter's beauty is like light. It blinds. When I look at her, I see perfection, and perfection leaves no room for growth. No room for mistakes, no room for discovery. Love, true love, needs all those things. Without them, it's not love, it's worship." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "You speak boldly." "I speak the truth," Elias said gently. "If I said yes to your proposal, I would not be loving your daughter. I would be serving her image. I would see her not as a person, but as something above me, and that is not what love should be. The queen leaned back on her throne, studying him. You are a strange creature, human. You reject beauty and choose pain. Elias smiled faintly. Because pain teaches us what beauty truly means. On Earth, love is not about perfection. It's about seeing someone's flaws and choosing them anyway. That is what makes love strong. Princess Seraphine stepped forward then, her eyes filled with quiet emotion. Mother, she said softly, he speaks truly. I have watched him these past days. He does not hide behind false words. He has shown me things we have forgotten. Tears, laughter, weakness. They are beautiful. The queen turned her gaze toward her daughter. And you believe this? Seraphine nodded. Yes, for the first time I feel alive. His words opened something inside me. The queen's expression softened, but only slightly. She looked between the two of them, her mind working behind her calm face. You speak as if imperfection is a gift, she said finally. It is, Elias said. Because imperfection gives us purpose. If we were already perfect, what would we live for? The queen fell silent. Her eyes dimmed for a moment as if she was lost in thought. Through her telepathic powers, she reached out, not to control, but to understand. She touched Elias's mind gently, and his memories appeared before her like images in a mirror. She saw flashes of war, burning ships, cries for help, friends lost among the stars. She saw him holding a dying comrade, whispering promises of peace. She saw him rebuilding broken cities, helping strangers, forgiving enemies. She saw his courage, his sorrow, his hope. The queen slowly withdrew from his mind, visibly moved. You have suffered greatly, she said softly. Yes, Elias answered. But that suffering made me human. It taught me to value life, not control it. The queen looked at him for a long time. Then, in a voice filled with both wonder and sadness, she said, Perhaps your kind is not as simple as we thought. Elias bowed his head. We are not perfect, Your Majesty, but maybe that's what makes us special. For a while no one spoke. The silence felt deep but peaceful. The queen finally rose from her throne, her long gown flowing like liquid silver. She stepped closer to Elias, her presence powerful yet calm. You are brave, human, she said. Few have spoken to me this way. I mean no disrespect, Elias replied. But truth deserves to be spoken even to a queen. Her lips curved slightly, almost a smile. You remind me of something our people lost long ago. Honesty born from emotion. We have lived too long in perfection. Maybe it has made us blind. The queen turned to her daughter. Seraphine, your heart has changed. Do you still wish to stand by this human, even knowing he cannot love you as you imagined? Seraphine looked at Elias and smiled gently. Yes, mother, because he has shown me that love is more than beauty. It is kindness, courage, and truth. Even if he cannot love me, he has given me something far greater. The queen's eyes softened with pride and sorrow at once. Then perhaps this meeting was destiny. But the peaceful moment did not last long. Suddenly, the crystal walls trembled with a deep vibration. The light in the chamber flickered violently. The guards rushed in, their armor shining. Your Majesty, one shouted. Unknown ships are approaching Nareth's orbit. They are not of our kind. The queen turned sharply. The Korvath? Yes, the guard replied, fear in his voice. Their fleet is large and they are demanding surrender. A dark shadow passed across the queen's face. The Korvath were ancient enemies of the Varelians, ruthless conquerors who despised peace. They had attacked before long ago but were driven away. Now they had returned. Elias stepped forward. Your Majesty, we must prepare the defense grid. I can help coordinate. The queen looked at him in surprise. You would fight for us after all that has happened. Elias nodded. You are my allies now, and I don't turn my back on those who seek peace. For the first time, Queen Althera smiled fully. Then you are welcome among us, human. She turned to her daughter. Seraphine, stay close. You will learn today what true strength is. The princess nodded, though fear flickered in her golden eyes. Yes, mother. Elias quickly contacted his ship, the SS Dauntless, orbiting on the far side of Nareth. Captain Hera, he said, activate defensive systems. We may need to engage. The captain's voice came through the communicator. Understood, sir. We're ready. The queen raised her staff and energy rippled through the palace. All forces to your stations, she commanded. We will defend Nareth. As the alarms echoed through the shining city, Elias looked out the tall crystal window. In the blackness of space, he saw them. Hundreds of dark ships moving like shadows, their red lights glowing like blood. The Queen stood beside him. "It seems your truth will soon be tested, human." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure it's worth it." And as the first energy blast struck Nareth's shields, the human and the alien Queen stood together for the first time, not as enemies or rulers, but as allies facing the storm. The war for understanding had begun. The sun of Nareth shone brighter than ever that morning, its golden light spreading over the crystal towers and shining gardens. The peaceful world looked calm, but deep inside the palace, silence was heavy. Queen Althera stood before the wide window of her throne room, her reflection looking older, tired. The betrayal of her trust still echoed in her heart. The human, Elias Ward, had left their world, taking with him a strange mix of honesty and pain. Seraphine, her daughter, sat quietly beside her. Days had passed since Elias's departure, but her thoughts had not settled. She replayed his words in her mind again and again. Love is not born from perfection. Those words had touched something inside her that she could not name. The Queen noticed her daughter's quietness. "Seraphine, you think of the human again?" she said gently, her tone mixed with worry and curiosity. Seraphine turned her glowing eyes to her mother. "He spoke things I had never heard before, Mother. He said beauty is not everything." "I do not understand yet." "I feel he was right," Queen Althera sighed. "Humans speak with emotion. Their words are not always wise. Their hearts are wild and uncertain. But maybe that is why they are strong," Seraphine replied softly. "He did not fear your anger nor my rejection. He spoke his truth, even when it cost him everything." The Queen looked at her daughter for a long time. There was wisdom growing in her, wisdom that came not from study or age but from understanding. Yet before she could answer, the ground trembled slightly beneath them. A faint sound rolled through the air, distant thunder. But there were no storms on Nareth. The Queen frowned and walked to the central console of the room. The crystals flickered to life, showing images of the outer atmosphere. The light from the display changed to a deep red. Seraphine gasped. "Mother, now what is that?" The Queen's eyes widened. "An invasion fleet," she whispered. "The Korvath." The Korvath were an old enemy of the Varelians, dark, insect-like creatures from the shadowed edges of the galaxy. Long ago they had fought for control of star systems rich with energy. When the Varelians refused to share their crystal resources, the Korvath swore revenge. Now their black ships filled the sky like a storm of night itself. "Prepare the planetary shields," Althera commanded, her voice echoing through the palace. Alarms began to sound across Nareth's cities. Citizens ran to shelters while silver defense ships took flight. Seraphine followed her mother closely. "Will we be able to stop them?" "We will try," said the Queen, her calm voice hiding the fear in her heart. "But their numbers are great. Our last war nearly destroyed us." The palace guards rushed to defend the main gates as the first wave of Korvath ships entered the atmosphere. Explosions of blue light filled the sky. Varelian ships met them with bright laser fire, but for every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more arrived. The Queen activated the shield that surrounded the royal city. A dome of shimmering energy rose, protecting the capital, yet the outer colonies were already burning. "Send a distress signal to our allies," she ordered. Her officer replied quickly. "Your Majesty, the signal is being blocked. The Korvath have released interference waves. We are alone." High above, in the silence of space, the battle spread wider. The Korvath mothership opened its massive jaws, releasing a stream of plasma that struck the planet's defense grid. The shield around Nareth flickered dangerously. Inside the palace, tremors shook the ground. Crystal pillars cracked and small fragments fell from the ceiling. Seraphine held onto her mother. "We must escape to the underground chambers." But the Queen shook her head. "No. If I abandon the command center, our forces will lose hope. The Queen must stay." Seraphine's eyes filled with fear. "Then I will stay too." Outside, the people of Nareth prayed. The sky turned dark as fire rained from the heavens. The once bright towers dimmed. The Queen's fleet continued to fight bravely, but it was clear. They were losing. And then something unexpected happened. From the far edge of the star system, a single ship appeared, a human vessel. It was the SS Dauntless, carrying the emblem of the Terran Federation. Inside, Captain Elias Ward stood on the command deck, staring at the burning world below. His crew looked at him in shock. "Captain, we're entering restricted Varelian space," said his navigator. "If we cross the border, we'll be breaking the peace agreement." Elias's voice was calm but firm. That agreement was meant to protect peace, not to watch others die. The communications officer hesitated. "But they exiled you, sir." "I know," Elias replied, his eyes hard as steel. "And I'll face the consequences later. For now, set a course for the capital city. Full shields, all weapons ready." The Dauntless surged forward, engines glowing like a second sun. On the surface, the Queen received a signal she never expected. "Incoming transmission from an unidentified human ship," her officer reported. "Humans?" she said, surprised. The voice that came through the speakers made her breath catch. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the SS Dauntless. Queen Althera, I know I have no right to ask, but we're here to help." The Queen stared at the communication screen. For a moment, her pride and confusion froze her words. But then another explosion rocked the palace. She looked at her daughter's pleading face. "Very well, human," she said. "Nareth accepts your aid." The Dauntless entered the thick of battle, dodging plasma fire and enemy drones. Its human crew worked with quick hands and fearless hearts. Human ships were smaller and less advanced than Varelian vessels, but they were built with adaptability. Every time the Korvath changed their attack, the Dauntless adjusted faster. Elias ordered, "Deploy drone swarm. Target enemy weapon cores. Focus on their command ship." Dozens of drones launched into space, circling like shining insects, cutting into the Korvath formation. The enemy fleet shifted focus toward the Dauntless, giving the Varelian defense ships time to recover. In the palace, Seraphine watched the battle feed, her eyes wide with awe. "It's him," she whispered. He came back. The Queen looked silently at the screen. The human's courage and loyalty stirred something deep inside her. "Perhaps," she murmured, "his heart is not as fragile as I believed." The Dauntless took heavy damage. Sparks flew across the bridge. One side of the hull burned and the shields dropped to half power. Still, Elias stood firm. "Status?" he demanded. "Shields at 40%. "We can't hold this position." Elias pointed to the map. "Then we won't hold. We move forward." "Sir?" "We take out their main power source. If we fall, making a difference." The Dauntless dove through the battlefield, dodging debris and fire. It cut straight toward the massive Korvath command ship. "Fire all torpedoes." The missiles hit the enemy's core with blinding light. The explosion was so strong it lit up the whole sky of Nareth. The Korvath fleet broke formation. Without their command ship, they began to retreat into the darkness of space. Cheers filled the Varelian control room. "They're leaving. The enemy is retreating." Seraphine smiled through tears. "He saved us, but the joy was short-lived." Reports came quickly. "Your Majesty, the human ship. It's badly damaged. They're losing power." The Queen watched the fading signal. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Prepare a rescue ship." Minutes later, Varelian medical craft reached the smoking wreck of the Dauntless. Inside, the crew was alive but injured, and at the heart of the ship, Elias sat, weak but smiling, as he saw Seraphine step aboard in her shining armor. "You should not have come back," she said softly. Tears shining in her eyes, Elias chuckled weakly. "You think I could watch your world burn after all that talk about love and beauty?" She smiled through her tears. "You are foolish, human." "Maybe," he said, "but sometimes foolish hearts save worlds." When they returned to the palace, the Queen herself met him. For the first time, she did not look at him as an outsider, but as an equal. "You defied your leaders," she said quietly. "You risked your life for those who cast you out." Elias nodded. "I didn't do it for honor. I did it because it was right." The Queen looked at him with deep respect. "Then perhaps, human, you have shown us a kind of beauty we never understood." And as the smoke cleared and the stars returned to the sky, the people of Nareth knew one thing for certain. Humanity, for all its flaws, had proven something greater than perfection. The sky above Nareth was no longer burning. Smoke drifted like dark ribbons across the morning light, and the once blinding crystal towers stood quiet and scarred. The war was over. The Korvath fleet had vanished beyond the edge of the system, leaving behind silence and loss. Inside the royal palace, the air smelled faintly of burned circuits and ozone. Queen Althera stood near the great balcony, watching the faint glow of her recovering city. Her golden robe shimmered faintly under the sunlight, but her face showed something deeper, gratitude mixed with humility. Behind her, healers moved quietly through the long marble halls. They carried energy packs and medical crystals. Among the patients, one figure lay on a healing bed surrounded by gentle blue light. Elias Ward, the human who had returned when all hope was gone. He was still weak from the explosion aboard the Dauntless. His arms were wrapped with faint bandages and his uniform was torn, but his spirit was as strong as ever. When Seraphine entered the room, he smiled faintly despite the pain. "You look better," she said softly, sitting beside him. Elias gave a small chuckle. "I've had worse days. At least this time I'm not falling through a burning ship." Seraphine's bright eyes softened. "You risked your life to save us, even after my mother exiled you." He shrugged gently. "I couldn't just stand by. A promise of peace means nothing if we don't protect it." For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the quiet hum of the healing crystal could be heard. Seraphine looked down, her voice almost a whisper. "When I saw you fighting, I felt something strange. It wasn't pride or admiration, it was understanding. You said love grows from flaws. I think I finally see what you meant." Elias turned his gaze toward her, his eyes kind. "Then you've already learned more than most humans ever do." That afternoon, the palace was filled with the soft rhythm of rebuilding. Workers restored the broken towers, soldiers buried the fallen with honor, and children began to play again under the pale gold light. The Queen called for a meeting in the Grand Hall. Representatives from the Varelian High Council, soldiers and citizens gathered there. The Queen entered slowly, her presence calm but powerful. Beside her walked her daughter and, to everyone's surprise, the human ambassador who had once been exiled. Whispers spread across the hall. Many could not believe the Queen allowed a human to stand beside her after all that had happened. Queen Althera raised her hand, and silence filled the room. "Citizens of Nareth," she began, her voice strong but gentle. "Our world stands today because of this man." Elias bowed slightly, uncomfortable with the attention. The Queen continued. "He did not come here for power or reward. He came because he believed that peace is not just a word. It is a promise made by hearts that refuse to give up." The hall was quiet. The Queen looked at her daughter, then back to her people. "For years we believed perfection made us strong. We shaped our bodies, our minds, and even our emotions to be flawless. But in our perfection, we lost something essential: courage, compassion, and the will to act when logic says it is impossible." Her eyes turned toward Elias. "This human reminded us that imperfection is not weakness. It is the reason life grows, the reason hope survives." A soft murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Even the elder Varelians, who once doubted humans, nodded silently. Then Queen Althera did something unexpected. She stepped down from her throne and bowed her head slightly toward Elias. "On behalf of Nareth, I thank you, Captain Ward. You have shown us a truth we had forgotten." Elias blinked, surprised. "Your Majesty, I only did what anyone should have done." The Queen smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but sometimes the simplest acts carry the greatest light." After the ceremony, the Queen invited Elias and Seraphine to the royal garden, a place untouched by war. The glowing flowers were beginning to bloom again, fed by starlight and gentle winds. It was peaceful, almost like the world had taken a deep breath after pain. Elias sat under a tall crystal tree while the Queen studied him carefully. "You are a strange man, human," she said. "You refused my daughter, defied my order, and risked your life to save us. Tell me, and what drives such choices?" Elias smiled a little. "Maybe it's just how humans are. We make mistakes, but we keep trying. We break rules when the heart tells us it's right. That's what keeps us alive." The Queen nodded slowly. "In your imperfection there is a kind of beauty we could never create." She turned to Seraphine. "My daughter, what do you see now when you look at him?" Seraphine's voice was soft but sure. "I see a man who taught me that beauty is not something that shines, it's something that breathes. It is kindness, courage, and honesty. And now when I look at myself, I see how empty I was before." The Queen looked between them. "Then you both have taught each other well." Elias shook his head. "No, Your Majesty. She taught me too. I came here thinking humans had all the answers. But she reminded me there's still wonder left in the galaxy, things worth learning." For a long moment, none of them spoke. The gentle hum of glowing leaves filled the quiet air. Then the queen placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "Your people and mine are very different," she said softly. "But today I see that difference as a gift, not a barrier. Together, we can build something stronger than either world alone." Elias bowed his head respectfully. "Then let's start, Your Majesty. Together." Days turned into weeks. The humans and Varelians began working side by side. Engineers exchanged knowledge. Scientists studied the hybrid technology of crystal and metal. And soldiers trained together for defense, not conquest. Nereth's skies slowly returned to calm blue, and laughter returned to its streets. The Queen established a new council, one that included both Varelian and human representatives. Elias, though not a ruler, was chosen as one of the advisors. Seraphine often worked with him, studying Earth's art, history, and human emotion. She was fascinated by how humans painted pictures full of feeling, even when imperfect. Sometimes she would ask him questions that made him smile. "Why do humans write songs about sadness?" she asked once. Elias answered simply, "Because sometimes sadness helps us remember we are alive." Seraphine thought about that for a long time. She began painting herself, using colors that shimmered between light and shadow. Her art became famous among her people, not for its perfection but for the emotion it carried. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elias prepared to leave. The Dauntless had been repaired, and Earth Command had finally allowed him to return. The Queen and Seraphine came to the landing port to say goodbye. The Queen spoke first. "You came here as a diplomat and you leave as a friend. Nereth will always remember the human who taught us how to see with our hearts." Elias smiled. "And I'll remember this world as the place that showed me what peace truly means." Then Seraphine stepped forward. Her luminous eyes were softer now, more human, more real. "You once said you could not love me because I was too beautiful," she said gently. "Do you still believe that?" Elias looked at her for a long moment. The soft light of the setting sun made her face glow, not with the perfect beauty of her kind, but with warmth, courage, and depth. "No," he said finally. "Now you are truly beautiful, because you understand what it means." Seraphine smiled, a single tear shining on her cheek. "Then maybe that was the love I needed. Not the one that holds, but the one that teaches." He nodded. "And that's the kind of love that lasts." As Elias walked toward his ship, the Queen watched quietly. The engines glowed, and the Dauntless rose into the sky, disappearing among the stars. Seraphine stood beside her mother, looking upward. The Queen touched her daughter's hand gently. "He may be gone, but what he gave us will remain forever." "Yes," Seraphine whispered. "He did not love me because I was beautiful. He taught me to be." And so, under the calm light of a new dawn, two worlds stood united, not by perfection but by understanding. The Varelians learned to cherish their emotions, and the humans learned that even in the vastness of space, compassion was their greatest strength. Elias Ward became a legend on both worlds, a man who proved that beauty was not about flawless skin or shining light, but about the courage to care, the strength to forgive, and the heart to act when others stay silent. In the galaxy's endless expanse, his name became a symbol of a truth older than stars. That love, in all its imperfect forms, is the most perfect thing of all.